Chapter 1: Estrangement from his first son. You know, sometimes, when I look back, the things I regret the most aren't the big things that everyone knows about. It's the small things, the things that didn't make headlines, the things that were just personal. Like the way I treated Julian. My own son. I was so wrapped up in my own world, in the madness of it all, the Beatles, the fame, the music, the revolution. Everything was spinning around me, and I was too busy trying to figure out who I was to even realize I was losing the people who mattered the most. I was so caught up in my own ego, my own desires, my own need to break free from the past, that I lost sight of what really mattered. And Julian, he was the one who suffered. I was distant. I wasn't there for him. I was so wrapped up in my own emotional turmoil, my own battles, that I didn't see how much he needed me. He was just a kid, you know. He didn't ask for any of this. He didn't ask for his father to be a rock star, or for his family to fall apart, or for the whole world to be watching us. And yet, there I was, too busy with my own shit to even be there for him. I left Cynthia, and with her, I left Julian. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was finding myself, I thought I was finding happiness. And maybe I was, in some ways. But in the process, I lost him. I lost the chance to be a father to him when he needed me the most. And that's something I'll never forgive myself for. It wasn't just the distance, the physical distance. It was the emotional distance too. I wasn't there for him when he was struggling. I wasn't there when he needed a father, a guide, a role model. I was too busy with my own rebellion, my own search for meaning, my own need to break free from everything I thought was holding me back. But in doing that, I ended up breaking something that mattered more than anything, my relationship with my son. And it's not like I didn't try. There were times, later on, when I tried to reach out, tried to make things right. But by then, the damage had been done. The distance between us was too great, and the years lost were too many. I couldn't go back and fix what I had broken. I couldn't undo the hurt I had caused. I think about it a lot. I think about the things I could have done differently. I think about how I could have been a better father, a better man. But then I realize, I can't change the past. All I can do is live with the consequences of my actions. And trust me, the regret, the guilt, it's something I carry with me every day. You know, people always talk about fame, about how great it is, how it gives you everything you want. But they don't tell you about the cost. They don't tell you that while you're out there chasing your dreams, you're losing the things that matter most. The people who love you, the people who need you. They don't tell you that sometimes, in the pursuit of your own freedom, you end up shackling yourself to a lifetime of regret. And that's what happened with Julian. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I wasn't. I wasn't there when he needed me. I wasn't the father he deserved. And no matter what I do now, I can't undo the past. I hope, in time, he can understand. I hope he can see that it wasn't about him, that it was about me, and the mess I was making of my own life. But I know that doesn't make it right. It doesn't make up for the time lost, for the things left unsaid, for the love that should have been there and wasn't. And so, all I can do now is try to be better. Try to make amends, even if it's too late. Try to be the man I should have been, even if it's a little too late to be the father I should have been. But I'll never stop trying. Because that's the only thing I can do now. Chapter 2, Domestic Violence and Aggression. You know, there's a part of me, well, a big part of me, that I wish I could erase. A part of me that, if I'm being honest, I'm ashamed of. It's not the public stuff, the fame, the music, the headlines. It's the private stuff. The things I did when no one was looking, the things I said, the things I became. I used to think I was a tough guy, you know? A rebel, a fighter. I thought I had to be strong, to show the world that I wasn't some soft, vulnerable man. But the truth is, I wasn't strong at all. I was weak. I was insecure, angry, full of fear. And the worst part? I took that out on the people I loved the most. I was abusive. I was cruel. I hurt the people closest to me, especially the women in my life. And I can't deny it. I can't pretend it didn't happen. I was an idiot, a bloody fool, and I made so many mistakes. I hurt Cynthia, I hurt others too, and I'll never forgive myself for that. I remember the anger, the frustration, the way I'd lash out. I thought it was normal. I thought it was justified. I thought I was entitled to that kind of behavior because I was struggling inside, because I was so messed up. But that's no excuse. None of it is. I'm not proud of it, and I don't want to sugarcoat it. I was violent. I was cruel. I did things I regret with every fiber of my being. I hurt people I loved, and that's something that stays with you. It's not something you can just forget. It's not something you can just apologize for and expect everything to be okay. The damage was done, and the guilt, the shame, it's something I carry with me. But I've tried to change. I've tried to grow. I know I'll never be able to undo the past, but I've spent a lot of time reflecting on it, on who I was, and who I want to be. I've tried to become a better man, a better person, someone who doesn't let his anger control him, someone who doesn't take out his pain on others. I know that's not enough. I know I can't just say I'm sorry and expect forgiveness. I know I can't change what happened. But what I can do is be better now. I can learn from the mistakes I made, even if they're the hardest lessons I've ever had to learn. And I can try to be the man I should have been all along. The truth is, I've hurt people. I've hurt the people I loved the most. And that's something I'll never be able to fully make up for. But what I can do is try to be better. I can try to make sure that I don't repeat those same mistakes, that I don't let that side of me take over again. And maybe, just maybe, if I'm lucky, I can make peace with myself. Because I'll never be perfect, and I'll never be able to undo the harm I've done. But I can try to be a better man, a better person. And that's the least I can do. Chapter 3, Drug Addiction. You know, there was a time in my life when I thought drugs were the answer. I thought they were the key to unlocking some deeper truth, some greater understanding of the world. But all they did was take me further away from who I was, further away from the people who loved me, and further away from the music that mattered. I remember those days, the late 60s. Everything was spinning. The world was changing, and so was I. I was searching for something, anything, to fill the emptiness inside. The fame, the pressure, the expectations, it was all too much. I was looking for an escape, a way to numb the noise, to silence the chaos in my head. And drugs, LSD, heroin, they gave me that escape, at least for a while. But it wasn't real. It wasn't freedom. It was just a trap. A way to disconnect from everything, to avoid facing the mess I was making of my own life. I thought I was being profound, I thought I was expanding my mind, but all I was doing was losing myself. I remember the first time I tried LSD. It was like I could see the universe in a way I'd never seen it before. Colors were brighter, sounds were sharper, everything felt so intense. But after a while, that intensity became overwhelming. It wasn't about creativity or expanding consciousness anymore. It was about escaping reality, about hiding from the pain I didn't want to face. And heroin, well, heroin was the worst. It was the darkest place I ever went. It was the one thing that made me feel numb, made me feel like I wasn't hurting anymore. But it wasn't real. It wasn't peace. It was just an illusion. And the more I used, the more I lost touch with everything, myself, my music, the people I cared about. It affected my relationships. It affected my creativity. It affected my health. It took me to places I didn't want to go. It made me someone I didn't recognize. I hurt people along the way. I pushed people away. I was a shell of who I used to be. And I knew it. But I couldn't stop. I couldn't break free. It took me a long time to realize that the drugs weren't the answer. They were the problem. They were just a way to avoid the real issues, the real pain I was carrying. And when I finally got clean, when I finally pulled myself out of that mess, I was left with the wreckage. The relationships I'd damaged. The years I'd wasted. The music I'd almost lost. I can't change what happened. I can't undo the damage. But I can tell you this, I learned the hard way. I learned that there's no shortcut to peace, no magic pill to fix everything. The only way out is through. The only way to find peace is to face your demons, not run from them. I don't regret the music, the creativity, the art that came from that time. But I regret the way I treated myself. I regret the way I treated the people who loved me. I regret losing myself in something that was never going to save me. And now, I look back, and I see the damage. I see the wasted time, the lost years. But I also see the lessons. I see the strength it took to get out of that hole, to rebuild my life, to rediscover who I really was. It wasn't easy. It wasn't quick. But it was worth it. Drugs never gave me what I was looking for. They only took. But in the end, I found something far more valuable, the real me. And I'll never lose sight of that again. Chapter 4, Abandonment by His Father. You know, sometimes I wonder what kind of man I would have been if my father had stuck around. If he hadn't just disappeared. If he hadn't left us when I was just a kid. I don't remember much about him, not really. I remember the stories my mum told me, and the bits and pieces that I pieced together over the years. But mostly, I remember the feeling of being abandoned. The feeling of being left behind. It was like a hole in my heart, and no matter how much I tried to fill it with music, with fame, with all the things I thought I wanted, it was always there. Always aching. He was a sailor, you see. Came and went. But one day, he went and never came back. I was just a little boy, but I could feel it. I could feel the absence, like a shadow that never left. I didn't understand it then, not fully. I didn't know why he wasn't there, why he chose to leave. But I felt it. And that feeling, that sense of being abandoned, it stayed with me, deep inside. It wasn't just about the man he was or the man he wasn't, it was about what it did to me. It made me feel small. It made me feel like I wasn't enough. Like I wasn't worth sticking around for. And no matter how many people came into my life, no matter how many friends or lovers or fans, there was always this part of me that felt like I wasn't worthy of love. That I wasn't worthy of being seen. I didn't want to admit it, not then. I didn't want to show anyone that I was hurt. I didn't want to be vulnerable. But I was. I was hurt. I was angry. And that anger, that deep, seething anger, it came out in all sorts of ways. I pushed people away. I built walls. I acted like I didn't care. But I did. I cared more than anything. I remember, years later, when I found out he was still alive. I remember the anger I felt when I realized he didn't even try to make contact, didn't try to explain, didn't even try to be a part of my life. It was like he'd never existed. Like he'd never mattered. But that's the thing, isn't it? The thing about abandonment, it's not just about the person who leaves. It's about the person who's left behind. It's about how you carry that weight, that feeling of not being enough, that fear of being abandoned again. It shapes you, whether you want it to or not. It shapes the way you see the world, the way you see yourself. I spent years trying to prove I was worth something. Trying to prove that I wasn't like him. Trying to show the world that I could be loved, that I could be enough. But I never fully understood how much that abandonment had hurt me until much later. I don't know if I'll ever forgive him. I don't know if I'll ever get the answers I need. But what I do know is this, I had to learn to stop carrying that weight. I had to learn to let go of the anger, the resentment, the need for his approval. I had to learn to love myself, even if he couldn't. It wasn't easy. It's never easy to let go of something that deep, that painful. But I did. I had to. And in the end, it wasn't about him at all. It was about me. It was about finding peace within myself, even in the face of abandonment. Because, in the end, I realized that I don't need anyone to tell me I'm worth something. I don't need anyone to show me love. I can give that to myself. I can heal myself. And that's something no one can take away from me.